So is this picture the Space Marine half of a new Warhammer 40k starter set? I'm going to argue it probably is. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics. It seems that the news and rumours for 9th edition just never stop coming in, and no sooner had I finished the previous video talking about new Primaris bikers, veterans with power swords and storm shields, and a brand new character, do I see this image that's been posted to various different Warhammer 40k Facebook groups. This picture is drawn from the Warhammer40000.com site, one where the Warhammer community team had mentioned that there were a few Easter eggs hidden that intrepid fans might be able to find. From having a look over the images myself, I wasn't personally able to find this image in any obvious place, so forgive me if it's somewhere that's blindingly obvious, but from the comments on the various Facebook groups, they believe that people might have come across this by searching the actual data on the website to see if there were any images that were available that weren't immediately obvious from clicking through to them. However they've managed to find it. This picture of Primaris Space Marines pretty much does confirm the fact that the Primaris bikers that we saw in the previous reveal are indeed the case. There's also the Executioner style character and the snazzy veteran type unit with storm shields and power swords. Not only that, but there are another 2 characters here and a unit of interesting Gravis chaps armed with melter weapons. Now this could be any random collection of 40k Primaris Space Marines, but I would bet very good money that this represents the Primaris half of a 9th edition starter kit. It bears almost uncanny resemblance to Dark Imperium in terms of the amount of miniatures that you get, and as I mentioned before, I believe that the bikes looked very similar to the Dark Angels bikes that we saw in the Dark Vengeance starter set in 7th edition, and these were monopose models, much like Dark Imperium. And people also mentioned that the Primaris veterans looked pretty monopose in terms of the way that they were carrying their gear and everything. I'm certainly not saying that I might be wrong, but this bears so close a resemblance to Dark Imperium that I'd be amazed if it isn't the starter set. So let's take a look at some closer images of the things that we can see then. These are literally just looking at a zoomed in version of the same picture, but you can see a few more details. First of all, we've got these Primaris bikers, resplendent in an Ultramarines colour scheme, armed and equipped in the exact same way as the previous leaks showed, 2 with chainswords and 1 with a heavy bolt pistol, and we can see that that sergeant type with the heavy bolt pistol also seems to have a chainsword himself as well. They look like very much upscaled versions of the standard bikers that we have now. Nice to see that they get chainswords, meaning that they should be a little bit more proficient in melee, presumably packing those twin bolt rifles for a bit of extra AP. I suspect they might also have 3 wounds as well, seeing as they're Primaris Marines, and the regular bikers have 2 wounds, so it would kind of make sense for the Primaris ones to have at least 1 more wound than that. Next, let's move on to the Storm Shield veterans. We can see that there's 3 of them on the right side of the picture, with their little Iron Halo type devices that very much match the guy with the pistol and storm shield that we saw on the Warhammer40000.com page. We've got one guy who's marked out as a sergeant, and the other guy is bearing white helmets of veterans, so it pretty much confirms that they are a veteran looking unit for the Space Marines. They do give me hints of the Victrix Honor Guard that we saw for Calgar, so I really wouldn't be surprised if these guys have some sort of mechanism for tanking wounds for their escorting characters. Talking of characters, it looks like on the left hand side of this shot we have 2 other Primaris characters who I believe are with storm shields. Now these could well be the same part of the squad as the other ones, but they just look a lot more ornate to me. I suspect that what we're seeing is a brand new Primaris captain on the very left and a Primaris lieutenant with the red and white stripes down the front of his helmet, much like the previous lieutenants had. I'm really pleased to see this. I've been hoping that Primaris would get access to things like storm shields at some point in the future, as that's another option that they've been denied up to now. I also really hope that they just get these rolled into their standard datasheet rather than adding to the ever-expanding repertoire of new Primaris Lieutenant and Captain datasheets. I know that these are monopose, but flexibility when constructing armies will be very nice, please Games Workshop. I can't 100% tell from this angle, but I wonder if the guy on the left is wearing a Gravis armour variant. I also can't quite make out what sort of power weapon he's armed with, but I imagine it's going to be something pretty hefty to match up with that shield. It looks like a bit of an enormous blade to me from here, but some more zoomed in and close up versions of the photo will be very nice as and when they become available. Next, standing at the back and very blurry, are 3 melter-armed Gravis troops. I think that was one thing that people could have predicted, to see some more variants for Gravis armour, seeing as we'd seen loads of variants for Phobos, but nothing really much since the start of 8th edition for the Mark X Gravis armour variant. These guys do seem to have a bit of a different take to the standard aggressors that we've seen. They don't have power fists, they just literally look like they're armed with melter guns or some sort of similar melter gun variant. To my knowledge, I believe that these are some of the first melter weapons that Primaris have actually managed to get their hands on. so it's good to see this iconic bit of Space Marine war gear added to their range. I wouldn't be surprised if they have some interesting special rules, such as the aggressors do, being able to advance and fire their assault weapons for no penalty. Who knows, maybe they might even receive the double shoot rule if they remain stationary, though that's going to be quite unlikely to happen if you're bearing low range melter guns. Good to see another dedicated anti-armor unit added to the Primaris range as well. They're beginning to have quite a few decent answers to tanks now. To the right of the shot we have 10 Assault Intercessors, although some of them are partly cut off by the way that the image has been edited, superimposing that massive Space Marine chap on the right. I can't immediately see any obvious power swords in there, I don't know about you guys. I suspect the sergeant is the one with the bare head, as they often like to take their helmets off, and he seems to be sporting a normal chainsword, though again it's hard to tell from the image. There's also a guy who seems to have his chainsword sheathed. I don't know whether that is a chainsword or whether it could be a power weapon that's sheathed. But honestly I wouldn't be too surprised if they're just the standard heavy bolt pistol and chainsword guys, at least in the starter set. Then maybe we might see something a bit more interesting released when they're released as a multi-part kit. The fact that they're here in this image, and if they are a starter set, then it implies that they might be troops for the Primaris Space Marines, rather than being fielded as a fast attack choice, as to me it would be a fairly silly idea to have an entire enormous box set, and not include any troops from the faction that you're releasing in that box. Again, Monopose seems to be very unlikely to have anything like jump packs. Who knows, maybe that could be an option if they do release a multi-part plastic kit for these guys further down the line. Getting full-on jump pack Assault Marine style Primaris would be really cool. Finally, we seem to have 3 support characters hanging about here. Dark Imperium had an Ancient, and I wonder if this guy in the middle is some sort of veteran Ancient, or whether his banner might do something else for the Marines. Certainly looks in a very different style, a bit more similar to those guys with the Storm Shields and Power Swords, so he might be some sort of Honor Guard type guy. We've got our old friend with the massive Executioner style blade and the hourglass on the left hand side of this picture, looking very blurry there, but still very much painted up, and lending a lot of credence to him actually being real. From this picture it looks to me like he's painted in black-clad power armour, making me wonder if he is some sort of chaplain variant. I could very much see a role for a chaplain executioner type person in a Space Marine army. If he is a chaplain, then maybe he's working alongside the guy on the right of the picture, who does look very much like a Primaris chaplain, again in black-clad power armour and holding aloft some sort of Crozius Arcanum. I've seen people wondering whether this guy might be an upgraded Primaris version of Chaplain Cassius or not. He is of course another iconic Ultramarines figure. In all honesty, my guess would be probably not, as with Games Workshop characters, they tend to have the unique heraldry of their chapter all over the place, rather than discreetly hidden away. My guess would be that he's a standard chaplain rather than Chaplain Cassius, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. So I have to say, if this is the new Warhammer 40k 9th edition starter set, then I'm very impressed indeed. If everything that we see here is really included in the kit, it looks like we get 5 characters, 3 units of 3 specialist troops, including those massive and awesome looking bikes, and a big unit of Assault Intercessors to bring the Emperor's justice to the enemy via means of a chainsword. I guess we can't be 100% sure that every single miniature is going to be included in this box, even if it is a starter set. It's altogether possible that one or more of the characters might be available to buy separately, much in the same way that the Primaris Librarian was around about the start of 8th edition. I strongly suspect that we'll get the Captain and Lieutenant at least, but perhaps one of the Chaplain type figures might not be in this box. I'm really honestly not too certain. I guess it also remains to be seen, if this is the starter set again, just how many other miniatures the opposing side has, whether you get the massive core rulebook included in this, and exactly what sort of price it would be, and just because it's a later product, I imagine that it will be more expensive than Dark Imperium would be. Miniature content wise though, there seems to be as much if not more, and even if this is a little bit expensive, I think I could see myself picking this up for my Space Marines, even if it wasn't the best value thing that Games Workshop ever came out with. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Am I right in imagining that this is going to be the starter set? And if so, then have they done a good job with it? It'll be interesting to see what you guys have to say down in the comments. If you've been enjoying these videos, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. I will be trying to keep abreast of 9th edition developments as they come out, in addition to all of our regular 40k tactics related content. Finally, if you have been enjoying these videos, then I'd just like to mention the channel's Patreon page. Basically, this is what allows me to keep on making videos quite so regularly and dedicate the time away from my normal job. If you have been enjoying all these videos, then any support is greatly appreciated, as well as helping keep Auspex Tactics videos coming. There's also the chance to see some videos early, to vote on new videos for what's coming next on the channel, and the occasional prize draw where I post out some miniatures to one lucky Patreon. If any of that sounds interesting to you, then please give the link a look in the description below. and a massive thank you to all of you guys who are supporting the channel. In any case, a very big thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.